This is one of the more interesting books in the epic. It introduces many interesting concepts that have been here all along, but haven't been really brought to the surface just yet. Hello and welcome or welcome back. Today we are reading the great books of Western civilization, beginning with the Iliad. This is book 14 of the Robert Fagles translation. I'll start with a brief plot summary, then move into analysis and commentary. As the battle moves closer to the ships, Nestor finally notices and goes to warn Agamemnon and the other wounded kings. Agamemnon suggests they make preparations to sail away from Troy immediately and give up on the war, but Odysseus straightens him out. At Diomedes' suggestion, they decide that they must return to the fighting to urge on the other troops, even if they themselves are too wounded to fight. Poseidon then appears and assures Agamemnon that he will see the Trojans retreating very soon. Watching from Olympus, Hera notices that Poseidon is helping the Greeks against Zeus's orders. Hera makes a plan, fearing that Zeus will soon notice Poseidon's interference. She obtains love from the goddess Aphrodite under a false pretense. Next, Hera approaches the god Sleep and convinces him to help her put Zeus into a deep slumber. Still wearing love, Hera approaches Zeus, who is helpless to resist her seduction as soon as he sees her. As soon as Zeus is asleep, Hera sends a message to Poseidon, urging him to fight the Trojans as hard as he can and not be afraid of Zeus noticing. Poseidon immediately spurs the Greeks on, gives them orders, and even fights at their side. Great Ajax hurls a boulder at Hector, nearly killing him, and the Trojans begin to retreat. To understand the meaning behind this chapter, we have to look at three major themes. Number one, the nature of the gods. Number two, connections to past themes. And number three, Eros. These ideas are important for understanding the Iliad itself, but also for the history of human thought and even reality itself. First, we see and have seen that Zeus, however powerful, is not omnipotent. He can be fooled, lied to, or distracted very easily. Poseidon does this, Hera does this, and the god Sleep does this too, not once, but twice. He may be the most powerful being, but he is not that which nothing greater can be thought. Translation, his power and influence are finite. He's king of the gods now, but there have been others before, and others will eventually follow after him. It's only Zeus's careful planning and arranging the marriage of Thetis that allowed him to keep his throne this long. This is important for future great books that we'll read because the concept of what a god is and what a god can do changes over time. Using the word does not mean you're talking about the same thing. We have many connections to previous themes in this book as well. In the last chapter, the fighting between the armies was likened to a great cable being drawn between Zeus and Poseidon. Zeus wasn't really paying much attention at the time, but just the threat of his fury and retribution was enough to keep Poseidon from being able to do as much as he wanted. However, in this chapter, Zeus is out cold, and Homer kind of alludes to this by describing the tension of the battle instead as a great cable drawn between Hector and Poseidon, which harkens back to the idea that we talked about last book, which was that Hector's success is driven by Zeus alone. Hector is completely cut off from the power that got him this far, and it shows. Great Ajax, who's been struggling to keep him out of the camp for a couple books now, bowls him over with a rock like it's nothing, just like he did in book 7. Hector is, once again, only human, and relying on only his human strength. The inhumanity of the fighting has reached a new high, or low, I guess. We have instances of combatants abusing corpses that are even worse than the previous chapter, and taunts directed not just at the victims, but at their families and at their comrades as well, mostly from the Greeks. Great Ajax says, "Think it over, Polydamas. This man's body for Prothoenor's. No doubt some brother of Antenor, that or his own son. The blood likeness is striking." So Ajax vaunted, knowing his victim full well. And later, someone else says, "Go tell them from me, you Trojans, tell the loving father and mother of lofty Ilioneus to start the dirges in the halls. This is sickening." Bernard Knox writes in the introduction that the Greeks showed themselves to be much more suited and even comfortable with this kind of brutal warfare, and this is definitely one of the moments where that's shown. Not that the Trojans are innocent, as we've gone over plenty of times, but even so, you can't help but feel pity for the Trojans as you read, which may just prove what I've said before. Every soldier in this story is undeniably human. Except now, the proof isn't just on the page, it's in you. It's in your own reactions to these offenses against the soldier's dignity. Why are these offenses happening, though? Is it really just the tension rising between the two armies? I don't think so. I gave a few reasons in the last video, but I think there's another cause as well. Eros is a Greek god, son of Aphrodite, commonly called Cupid. What I'm talking about here is not Eros in mythology, it's Eros in philosophy, or theology. In a brief word, Eros as a concept is sexual, romantic, passionate love all rolled into one. Something very natural to and good for human nature. Where it's present, it's believed to be a force for unity, for peace, for healing, fertility, and new life. Aphrodite gives love, wrapped up in a breastband, to Hera, believing that she will use it to resolve a dispute between two married sea deities. As the goddess of love, she knows that Eros has this power, so it doesn't really surprise her that Hera wants to use it for that. Next, Eros is present in Hera's conversation with Sleep as well. Sleep was not willing to work with Hera at first, because last time he helped her put Zeus under, he chased him and nearly killed him. However, once Hera offers to arrange a marriage between him and one of the Graces, some kind of goddess I think, he immediately complies with whatever she wants. Sleep and Hera start in disunity and end in common purpose, because of Eros. Lastly, we see it in Hera's seduction of Zeus. Every single time we've seen Zeus and Hera together, they've clearly been furious with each other, arguing, and no conversations or discussions could amend it. But when she approaches him with love, all is changed. Again, Eros can mend relationships. Obviously she does this as a trick, but for me that actually proves the purpose of Eros instead of disproves it. Here's why. I had said that Eros, defined as romantic, sexual, and passionate love, is a force for peace, unity, and life. What happens on the battlefield as soon as Hera uses this force for war? When Eros is abused, I believe it brings forward the opposite of its intended effects. If Eros rightly ordered brings about unity, then here we have disunity. And disunity is a form of pitilessness, a failure to see yourself in the other person. And so because of that, I think we now get the increased savagery and absolute pitilessness on the battlefield. Eros as a concept is infused throughout the epic though, from start to finish, so I'm gonna give it its own video. For now though, I'll see you next time in Book 15.